I invite our esteemed panelists for the same, Ms. Andrea Keller, Head of Automotive and Mobility Solutions, Swiss Re, Mohan Sivam, CTO of Flow Mobility, Ms. Kavita Viswanath, VP and GM, JFrog India. This discussion would be moderated by Mr. Narendra Bhandari, who's an angel investor. Welcome, everyone. Over to you, Mr. Narendra.
Thank you, Soumya. All right. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. I hope my audio is coming through fine, right, Soumya? Good. All right. So Soumya has talked about the panelists, but very quickly, just a 30-second intro, right? I mean, the whole industry around autonomous and connected computing across the globe has seen, emergence in several areas, right? There's a passenger component, there is a transport component, there is a shipping component, there is a industrial robots component, and then of course there's all kinds of drones flying on their own, like we just saw in terms of demo, initially controlled, and over time maybe these guys become far more intelligent and do their sorties on their own and deliveries on their own and emergencies on their own and stuff like that. Phenomenal space, right? Now, it's got a whole ecosystem, which has started to develop. It's got all kinds of technologies in terms of imaging, computing, aerodynamics, safety aspects, insurance aspects. It's a very vast field. What we're going to try and do is talk about 2 or 3 areas very specifically today, right? Soumya talked about the panelists, and what I'll do is I'll invite our panelists to just quickly introduce themselves and also give a little bit of a context of what do they do and what do they bring to this space and how do they contribute to the automatons as a topic in terms of moving forward. So let me first off get Mohan to talk about Flow Mobility.
Thank you, Narendra. Hi, everyone. This is Mohan Sivam. I'm CTO and co-founder at Flow Mobility. At Flow Mobility, we build universal autonomous platform focusing on the non-passenger segment. And our platform offering is the cloud-connected edge stack that runs AI model on it, which pretty much caters to most of the non-passenger use cases like industrial robots, material handling, agricultural autonomous robots, and so on.
Great. Thanks. That was short. Just let me ask you one quick question. Where are you in your product journey?
So we have already deployed autonomous robots in various form factors. The current most active form factor is autonomous lawnmowers, surprisingly working very well in Bangalore. We have about 50 locations deployed, and as we speak, these lawnmowers are moving resorts around Bangalore day in and day out and generating revenue for us.
Great. We'll come back and talk about what next beyond lawnmowers and what's going on in this space.
Absolutely.
Let me invite Kavita from JFrog, and Kavita and JFrog help a whole bunch of developers get productive. So Kavita, let's bring you in the forefront, and please do introduce yourself and talk to us about JFrog.
Sure. So my name is Kavita Viswanath. I head the India business at JFrog. JFrog is a DevOps company. It's an end-to-end DevOps automation platform. And what we do is essentially we work in the background, right? So you have an autonomous vehicle, and let's talk about lawnmowers that Mohan just spoke about. It's running some software that's powering these lawnmowers, and you're controlling it remotely. But when you have an update to, let's say, upgrade the lawnmower or you launch a new feature, you need to push it remotely without stopping the lawnmower. So you want to do it on the fly without, the lawns getting disturbed or while somebody's using it. So that's really what we do in the background, which is end-to-end automation, software releases and updates to make sure that your vehicles, your devices work seamlessly, get updated automatically. And more importantly, I think, given the vulnerable and volatile world that we are in, security is a huge concern, right? So we have, devices, software getting attacked, and it could also be a lawnmower. I love that example, by the way, Mohan. So thanks for, starting off with that. I think anything could get hacked today. So to make sure that your devices, your vehicles are secure or protected. Again, that's something that we do through our DevOps platform. And I'll pause at that and let Narendra take over before I start talking more about it.
We'll certainly come back to you, Kavita. So yeah, we'll talk about lawnmowers, and if they can go pluck the right rows and hand it off to my wife when she enters the house, that should be fun, right? So we'll talk about that more. Let me invite Andrea. So Andrea, clearly, please do talk about Swiss Re and the context of Swiss Re in this space. And most importantly, all these things will come with a business aspect, protection, security, humans, flowers, pets, everything's going to be involved. So help us, how are we going to deal with this space?
Well, thanks. Hi, everyone, and thanks so much for having me. Yes, my name's Andrea. I head Automotive and Mobility Solutions at Swiss Re. So Swiss Re is a global reinsurer. Simply put, we insure primary insurers for large perils. And besides traditional risk transfer, we also have set up a new division that's called Solutions, where we develop data-driven and tech-enabled products and services that we sell to our clients, primary insurers globally, but also to any other players in the ecosystem. And in that department, I look after automotive and mobility. And what the team does is really take a look at how the case trends, so increased connectivity of vehicles, increased automation of vehicles, and new shared mobility trends and electrification impact motor insurance, and specifically how it changes the underlying risk, but also what the insurance industry needs to do in order to assess those risks and provide insurance so such new technologies can actually hit the roads. So in the lawnmower example, we would think about, what data do we need of autonomous items in order to assess how risky that is and what type of insurance cover is needed.
Awesome. Welcome, Andrea. Thanks. Mohan, let's get back to the lawnmowers and beyond, right? Now, walk us through a little bit in terms of just maybe a quick snapshot in terms of what does it take to get a lawnmower to not go beyond what it's supposed to do, and so that Andrea doesn't have to go out and pay damages. And then where is this technology headed?
Yeah, spot on. That's a question that I have to answer 100 times a day. Thanks for the question. So essentially, let me actually walk you guys through a journey. So the autonomous landscape has been mostly familiar around passenger autonomy, right? So you have cars and trucks that's autonomous today. Today, there are autonomous taxis in towns like San Francisco and Europe. Most of the academia and research are towards that. If you see the market segment and utilitarian benefit of automating a non-car or non-passenger segment, it's actually pretty huge. It starts somewhere as your backyard being mowed by autonomous lawnmower, all the way to autonomous boom sprayers for large-scale agriculture and industrialization. So what we do is we try to take the cues from these passenger autonomous technology and then dump it down so that we can actually afford to automate these utilitarian equipments and vehicles. Of course, the same levels L1, L2, L3 applies. Right now we are at L2 and we're slowly migrating to L3. Interestingly enough, this leap from L2 and L3, it's not done through sensors. Typically, if you see the passenger autonomy, you have LiDARs, and the more sensors you put together, a $50,000 stack minimum would let you to, kind of leap from L2 and L3. That's not the case here because you cannot put a $50,000 lawnmower. So most of the work, the heavyweight is pulled by computer vision and AI. So we train edge AI algorithms and build efficient, edge inferencing and build a large data collection pipeline to enable these lightweight edge AIs or tiny AI to be able to perceive the environment. It's kind of a semi-sentient in a sense. It perceives the environment and understands what's going on. Is the grass or it's not a grass? It's a wall or it's a pet or it's a flower or it's a pet plant or something. So we train these AI models to identify this and will not go and collide on them and cut them out, and also to navigate around and perform the tasks that we intended to do.
What's next for you guys from lawnmowers to where?
So lawnmower was our, interestingly, fourth factor. So after we build our platform, which is basically a universal platform, we went on a spree on experimenting different use case. We started out with micromobility, and during COVID, it's not a great place to start with. So we swiftly jumped into agricultural and landscaping segment. So a lawnmower was recently successful. We are in scale production of lawnmowers, and every day a couple of them are being deployed. And we are right now moving to agricultural use cases, which turns out to be a huge impact potential. Today, the major. I'm also a farmer. As a family, we are a farming family, and I'm not doing farming and doing engineering because the huge shortage of laborers, and the cost has skyrocketed to operate these farms with human forces. So the whole process of harvesting to plowing to maintaining this has to be automated, and drones are already on the way. However, drones can fit to certain market. You need on-ground autonomy to solve quite a lot of other market segments. And we see, boom spraying, fertilizer spraying, plowing, harvesting is a huge market to cause an impact and disruption.
Awesome. Actually, I probably about a year or two ago, maybe 2-3 years ago, when somebody mentioned that you should get into farming and this and that, and somebody else cautioned me, like, the first thing you want to be careful in farming is you'll never find enough people to go to farming. And I was like, we're in India, we have 1 billion plus people. What do you mean I want to find people for farming? But as I dug into it, almost everybody wants to move into the city. Nobody wants to get into farming. So actually, it's a pretty serious subject, right? I mean, so anyway, talking about people, Kavita, so now you need smart folks to code this stuff, right? To help Mohan build, cool stacks. Now, you talked about background capabilities. I mean, this is not my Candy Crush or my, WhatsApp where I'm doing something happened in the background. It's fine. I lost a few candies. I start again. These are equipments which can help, hurt, etc. Talk to us a little bit about the talent and the skilling component, right? What kind of capabilities today are going to be, you think, needed and going forward, and how can some of your tools help?
Sure, but before that, I'll point out that when Candy Crush crashes or WhatsApp crashes, it's a big disaster. So I think we're living in a world where everything is connected and everything needs a high level of attention. So I'll take a step back, right? When we think of autonomous vehicles or connected vehicles, right? We have big brands like Ford, Tesla, Uber, also now in that space, Toyota. And these are big names. These are pioneers. And we have Tata Motors in India as well, which own some of the biggest brands out there. All of them have connected vehicles. All of their vehicles run on crucial software, which powers it, right? Now, anything that fails in that software is a big hit for the brand because it gets talked about. We have Hyundai kind of recalling many vehicles. Toyota did that a couple of years ago. And it's a big disaster and a big impact of revenue for these big brands. So when you think of software and the power that it has today in terms of powering these vehicles and getting these vehicles connected, you have to be really, really careful in terms of what software you run in your vehicles. And what happens in the background, which is the underlying layer of infrastructure, needs to be really solid. And this is where we see DevOps kind of playing a big role and a bigger role more and more now with cloud coming and taking over a lot of this, connectivity issues. And this is where DevOps is kind of powering this software, right? So I'll give you an example. So Tesla is one of our customers, so is Tata Motors. When Tesla runs an update to their vehicles, it's not like I'm sitting in a Tesla vehicle and the car is driving and suddenly it stops saying, hey, I have to run a software update. So I'm going to stop in the middle of, let's say a traffic signal, or it could be on a freeway. It doesn't happen. So it has to happen in the background. And this is where you need to have a solid team. You need to have the right structure in the organization to build a DevOps strategy. And this is where developers, operations, the infrastructure team kind of work together. Now, let's talk about skilling and let's talk about the kind of people we need to pull this off. In terms of skill sets, the DevOps teams, the infrastructure team that really work to make this happen for these brands, the most interesting skills and the latest ones to have now are micro containers, Docker, Kubernetes, open source technologies, because a lot of this runs on open source. We have Python, we have C++, which is, by the way, a big technology, although it's quite outdated, but in the connected, automotive world, it's a big piece in the whole scheme of things. So these are some of the technologies that people need to learn. And this is quite universal, by the way. So if you're running an automotive company, you could be a startup, you could be a big brand. As long as you're using the latest tech, which has Kubernetes, Docker, or any of these things, you can hire anyone from the market. The guy could be working with Infosys today and could be working with, I don't know, Tesla or any other vehicle company tomorrow. So that's the power of technology, and it's kind of neutralizing the ground today. And back in the day, we started off with software as a service, food as a service, and now we technically have automotive as a service, because the software is actually powering all the vehicles and all the devices that we have today.
Nice. Well, we have a lot more as a service, clearly from what Mohan just mentioned. So great. So containers, Kubernetes, guys, people in the audience, are listening or going to be listening. These are the skills which are going to be required to go make your mark in this sort of automatons industry. Andrea, let's shift to the discussion around how large is this space? I mean, you guys have a perspective on how much business is there? I mean, are we talking, is this a novelty in your opinion? Is this a massively ramping business? Is sort of one question. So if you can give a little bit of perspective. And the second thing there is that, what are the geographical contexts do you see, right? And folks like Mohan and others who are building products and capabilities for this space, what advice would you give them so that they can build their products and capabilities and stacks using JFrog and others, so that any kind of damage is minimized, and frankly, in some ways, your role becomes more at the back end, and you don't have to deal with any of the claims.
Mm-hmm. Yes, so of course, when we talk about autonomous vehicles, it is very small scale still at the moment. But the opportunity, if I take the angle from an insurance point of view, I think motor insurance, when you look at it, is one of the largest lines of business. It makes up 42% of all non-life premium. So it's roughly 700 billion in premiums this year, which is foreseen to double to 1.4 trillion by 2040. So it's a very big risk pool that's linked to motor insurance. And the way the insurance industry has looked at motor risks so far is really around who drives the car and what risk that person poses. So when you buy motor insurance, you're often asked about what's your age, what's your previous claims history, and based on that, an insurer models your risk and makes you an offer and a premium you need to pay. Now, when we think about, and also building upon what Mohan and Kavita have said, vehicles are increasingly equipped with technology, whether it is using computer vision or sensors, and moving from level 2 to level 3 autonomy. That also means many tasks are passed on from the driver to the vehicle itself. And then what that means for the insurance industry is risk models need to shift from a driver-centric approach more to a vehicle-centric approach. So I think there's really a big opportunity in assisting the insurance industry in making that shift and learning and offering tools and products that enable them to understand the impact of the technology in the vehicle onto the risk and what that means from an insurance point of view. So if we take that example of the lawnmower again, I think what's interesting from our point of view then, if we were to insure something like that, is in which ODD would that work? What are the edge cases that would be relevant from an insurance point of view in understanding whether the vehicle can still manage that or not? And that will be a bit of the way we look at insuring autonomous vehicle risks and what's needed in terms of data in order to understand it better. You've also asked about... Yeah.
Sorry,
Okay.
please go ahead. Please go ahead.
No, I just wanted to touch upon your second question on the geographical context, and I think that's a bit linked to the introduction. I think at the moment, if we look at passenger vehicles, but also commercial fleet, autonomous mobility is still kind of very punctual, right? I think San Francisco was mentioned earlier in the call. We definitely see a big ecosystem in the US as well as in China, in Europe too. There's a lot of places where autonomous mobility is being tested in various ODDs, but we don't see it entering mass scale yet, and that will take a while, I think, till the technology can deal with several ODDs and for example situations like roads in India.
Yeah. I just wanted to add, I think it's a great point that Andrea called out, which is the risk of, running a vehicle of any sort. It could be autonomous or it could just be a connected vehicle, right? With a human driving it. And I think this is where the role of software and technology is crucial. So imagine if you're running something that's totally outdated and it just stops working, it gives you wrong signals, when you're on the road, it's a huge risk as well. And this is what we see getting picked up by most of these larger brands and automotive companies to focus on keeping the software updated, investing more in technologies and infrastructure, and therefore keeping the DevOps part of it alive.
Awesome. Andrea, I just want to make sure I clarify one part. You mentioned the industry size is, let's say, around 700-ish million, moving up to literally doubling 1.4 trillion. And this is assuming a certain percentage of autonomous, or let's assume if the autonomous became a good 20-30% of the drivers. I'm assuming the net cost of driving net cost of insurance would potentially go down, right? Is that a fair?
Yeah.
Because ultimately, if this leads to safer roads and lesser cost per mile, that's the value back to the industry, is the way at least I see it.
You're absolutely right. So I think the numbers I said, that is a global forecast and is also largely driven by emerging markets, growing middle class that would purchase a vehicle and then also buy insurance for that. If we were to look at growth outlook more in developed markets, we see the impact of technology much sooner already, and the growth stagnating much earlier due to the more automated the vehicle fleet gets, the lower the risk as well. So our results show that already level 2 technology like ADAS in vehicles reduce accident frequencies and severities, and the more automated vehicle gets, the bigger that impact can be. Of course, from an insurance point of view, there's also new risks emerging with highly automated technology. We can think about cyber risks or just higher severity incidents. So that's definitely all areas we are observing very closely and modeling. But you're absolutely right that it's also our assumption that the more automated vehicles get, the safer they are, and hence also insurance premiums being adapted accordingly.
Great, yeah. So thanks everybody. We should wrap up, but before we wrap up, I'd like to give an opportunity for each of you to, just very quick 3 tweets, right? Like 30 seconds, 45 seconds each before Soumya shuts off the internet connection on all of us, right? So Mohan, you want to quickly summarize?
Yeah, so I've been thinking about it for a while. So from Flow Mobility is like my third deep tech startup. So one philosophy that constantly hits back us during the product development cycle is that the concept of vertical integration. I like there are quite a lot of vertical integrators, deep tech companies in the country, but that's not enough. For example, this is not a USP, but we build the world's most affordable autonomous stack. We don't use lidars. It is just purely driven by cameras. That require the level of vertical integration where we got to write from the firmware in the motor driver all the way to the data collection pipeline and build custom edge OSs to make it possible. So I really encourage engineers, product thinkers, and innovators to pursue vertical integration across the stack, and that's not just by like just like writing code, it's also making your robot completely indigenous. At Flow Mobility, except the processor, 100% of the rest of the components are indigenous. It's all sourced actually in Bangalore. So that has led us to, scale at the rate that nobody else can actually do across the globe. So that's something I definitely encourage. And if you're
your call out is, while you work with components, make sure you have the ability to pull together complete vertical stack.
Exactly. So the cost of the first prototype and the second prototype doesn't have more than 15% difference, and it's already we are already leveraging the scale by just locally procuring the components. And
Awesome.
For the people who are working on computer vision and AI, I just want to know this is just the beginning of computer vision and AI. And that's just it's already part of our life with TikToks and Instagrams, but it's just going to go much beyond that. And keep your tabs on it and start learning computer vision AI as soon as you can.
Awesome.
And
awesome.
we are hiring too. I'm going to paste a careers page in the chat for you guys to check it out.
Thank you, Mohan. So vertical integration, learn computer vision AI, and send in your resumes. Awesome. Kavita.
Yeah, I think I spoke a lot about connected vehicles and autonomous vehicles, but the thought that I'm going to leave everyone with is when you think of all of these devices, it could be any device, it could be a vehicle, it could be a laptop or any other device, even an automated water filter for that matter. You need to power all of these devices with latest software and keep your software updated. If your software is not updated, you're living a risky life, and I would let Andrea then talk about the risks and the cost impact of that. But I think in today's connected world, it's important to think of a DevOps strategy that helps you keep your software updated, keep it secure, and that's really where we come into the picture. I always tell everyone that JFrog is the best kept secret in India, in Bangalore, in the world, because our product, Artifactory, is more popular than our company name, JFrog. So I think if many of you here listening to me talking about all of this, I'm talking about Artifactory, which has been around for decades and the most popular product in DevOps. But if you'd like to learn more, of course, please go to our website, jfrog.com. You can search for hundreds of YouTube videos where we talk more about it. And you can always look me up on social media. I'll be more than happy to talk to you more and more on this topic. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Kavita. So effectively use JFrog, keep the infrastructure fresh, right? Is the way I see it. Keep it fresh all the time. And this happens all in the background. And of course, there's lots of tools and resources available for developers to go and learn on your website. Andrea, we'll give you the final word.
Thanks. Yeah, so my takeaway is really that the trend of increased automation and autonomous vehicles does not just change mobility, but also has a huge impact on insurance and how the underlying risk is changing, but also how it needs to be assessed. And for that, we believe that the insurance industry needs to take a more vehicle-centric approach, learning more about how the technology in the vehicle impacts the risks and use that for the risk modeling and not just driver-centric information. And the third point is really it needs cross-industry partnerships in order to get there, and it needs that dialogue that we've just had today. So thanks a lot for that.
Phenomenal. Thank you. Absolutely, Andrea. So it needs a cross-industry partnership. My takeaway was, $700 billion. I mean, every $1 billion that the technology can reduce in terms of the insurance cost is all money going back to the consumers, right? So this is great learning. Thank you very much. Right. I think there is almost clear agreement that this place is gonna, this segment is gonna explode. There's lots of room for innovation, upstream, downstream technologies. I can see my friend Rahul coming up, who's building lots of technologies in this space to help developers. So thanks. I think there's enough to be discussed more, but hopefully the product companies, developers took something away in these three areas in terms of capabilities, products, and of course the business aspects. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.